Now, in the morning light, two men stand looking at the dead body of the estranged young wife, Liza. One man is the spectacular young Inspector Thorne of Homicide. The other, his assistant, Sergeant Muggin. And we hear Inspector Thorne saying,
"The room's a shambles, Sergeant Muggin. Furniture overturned, blood spattered. Dead woman struck at least a dozen times.
It looks like the victim, Liza Gray, put up something of a fight, Inspector Thorne.
She didn't have a chance, not with those blows to the head, Muggin.
I'm looking for the traditional blunt instrument, Chief, but I don't see one.
What are these coins on the floor? 2 nickels and a dime. As shiny as the day they came from the mint.
Brand new, huh?
Yeah, look over in that corner, Muggin. There are some more nickels and dimes, and they are under the bureau.
Yeah, Chief, and every one of them is brand new.
You can quit hunting for that blunt instrument, Sergeant Muggin.
Huh?
Here's your murder weapon. These new nickels and dimes. The killer filled a handkerchief or a piece of cloth with these coins, tied them in solidly, and had a homemade weapon that was used to beat Liza Gray to death.
It would be like a bag filled with metal.
Yes, Muggin. When the murderer struck Liza Gray with this bag of coins, it must have come apart.
And the nickels and dimes scattered all over the room.
All right, Muggin. Here, come outside. I'm ready to talk to the woman who reported the murder, Miss Claire Alsop.
Okay, Chief.
Now, Miss Alsop.
Yes, Inspector Thorne.
I understand that the murdered woman, Liza Gray, was your niece.
Yes, that's right.
Will you tell me what happened, please?
Inspector Thorne, my niece Liza and I were alone in the house.
You have no servants, Miss Alsop?
We had a woman come in and clean, but we ate out except for breakfast. That's how I happened to find poor Liza.
Oh, how do you mean, Miss Alsop?
I'd made our morning coffee as usual. And when I went to Liza's room to tell her it was ready, I found her. Murdered. Oh, Inspector Thorne, it was dreadful.
Now, take it easy, Miss Alsop. You heard nothing last night? No sounds of a struggle, perhaps?
These walls are pretty thick. You don't hear much from room to room.
Yes, that's true.
If I only realized James meant what he said, I never would have left my niece's side.
James?
Who's he?
James was Liza's husband, Sergeant Muggin.
Her husband?
Yes, Inspector Thorne. And James had threatened to kill Liza.
Now we're getting someplace, Chief.
You'll see, Muggin. Tell me, Miss Alsop, why did Liza's husband, James, threaten to kill her?
Because my niece Liza had left him.
Oh, for another man?
Oh, no. No, it was James's fault. My poor niece found out James was carrying on with a girl named Maria Sunter.
I see.
A girl he'd met when he was overseas in the army. James had the nerve to help this Maria Sunter get into the United States without saying one word to my niece.
And when your niece Liza found out, she left James?
Yes, Inspector Thorne. Fortunately, Liza had her own money. So she could be independent and leave her husband if she liked.
Well, then this house belonged to your niece, Liza.
That's right, Inspector. She asked me to come and live with her when she left her husband, James.
I may be slow, Miss Alsop, but I don't get it. If James was having an affair with Maria Sunter, the girl from Europe, why would he murder his wife?
I don't know, Inspector. He said he loved her. The night before last, James pushed his way into this house and told Liza no one else would ever have her. He said, Liza, you're my wife. You belong to me.
Chief, it looks like the guy wanted to have his cake and eat it, too.
Yes, apparently, Sergeant Muggin. Miss Alsop, is that your purse on the table?
Why, yes, Inspector Thorne.
May I look at the change in it?
The change? Why, of course.
Quarter. Quarter, 3 pennies, 2 nickels, and a dime. All old. Thank you, Miss Alsop. Where does your niece Liza's husband, James Gray, live?
At the Hotel Beverly, Inspector.
Thank you, Miss Alsop. Come on, Muggin. We're going to see James Gray.
And now at the Hotel Beverly, we see Inspector Thorne and Sergeant Muggin approaching the apartment of James Gray, the estranged husband of the murdered Liza Gray. And we hear...
Are you James Gray?
Yes?
I'm Inspector Thorne of Homicide. This is Sergeant Muggin.
Yes?
May we come in?
What is it?
It's about your wife.
About Liza?
Your wife has been murdered, Mr. Gray.
Murdered? You mean Liza's dead?
Yes.
Dead? Who did it? I'll kill her. Take it easy,
We've had enough killing, Mr. Gray. Now, you say you want to catch the murderer?
I'll do anything, Inspector Thorne.
Well, then first let me see the change in your pockets.
What?
Hand me any coins you have in your pockets, Mr. Gray.
Yes, of course. Here you are, Inspector Thorne.
All old. See if there are any more, Muggen.
Okay, Chief.
What is this?
That's all the coins he's got on him, Chief.
All right. You can put the coins back, Mr. Gray. When did you last see your wife, Liza?
When did I... Last week. Last Tuesday.
10 days ago?
Yes, Inspector Thorne.
Gray, you're lying. You saw your wife last night, shortly before she was murdered.
No, I
Not
didn't.
only saw your wife, you threatened her.
Who said so?
Your wife's aunt, Claire Alsop.
Claire's lying.
Someone's lying.
Claire's always hated me, Sergeant Muggen.
Claire hated you?
Yes, Inspector Thorne. Claire was always trying to break up Liza and my marriage. She was always telling my wife I was no good.
Maybe Aunt Claire had something there.
What do you mean by that crack, Sergeant Muggen?
Perhaps Sergeant Muggen means your affair with Maria Sunta, the girl you met in Europe and brought over here.
Inspector Thorne, Maria Sunta was a poor, friendless girl. I helped her to get out of that mess in Europe out of the kindness of my heart.
However, you kept your kindness a secret from your wife, Liza.
I was afraid my wife would misunderstand. Liza was very jealous, Inspector Thorne.
Well, didn't you realize how much worse it would look if your wife found out that you'd brought another woman, this Maria Sunta, here from Europe behind her back?
I was a fool. Where are you going, Inspector Thorne?
I'm going to open this bedroom door and see who's hiding in there.
No one's hiding in there.
I'm no genius, but I've been trained to observe, Mr. Gray. There are 2 coffee cups on your table.
Oh,
Well, as I thought, Maria Sunta. Sergeant Muggen, watch Mr. Gray. I'm going to talk to Miss Sunta alone.
Okay, Chief.
Now, Miss Sunta.
I know how it must look, Inspector Thorne. Me hiding here in the bedroom.
Yeah?
Jimmy and I, we didn't know who was at the door. We thought it best I should hide to be discreet.
It's a little late for that.
Oh, no, Inspector. No matter what anyone says, Jimmy and I are just friends.
Looked to me as if you were having breakfast together, Miss Sunta.
But I just came, Inspector Thorne. I swear that I only arrived a half an hour ago.
It's a peculiar hour for a visit.
I had something I had to tell to Jimmy.
Oh. What was so important that it couldn't wait?
Jimmy has been so good to me. I shall be eternally grateful for him helping me to come to this country.
What did you come to tell him?
I do what I can to make Jimmy happy. I hurried here to say I had seen his wife, Liza, and that she told me she would come back to Jimmy.
I see. When did you see Liza Gray?
Why,
You must have seen Liza Gray last night, Miss Sunta, the night she was murdered. Perhaps Liza told you she was going back to her husband, and that was the last thing you wanted to hear.
What are you saying, Inspector Thorne?
It looks as though you were in love with James Gray, Miss Sunta. So much in love that you might have killed his wife if she gave signs of forgiving him.
Oh, it is all lies. I will get Jimmy, he will tell you. Jimmy. The inspector thinks I have killed Liza.
Maria? What have you been saying to Maria, Inspector Thorne?
I have been stating facts, Mr. Gray.
Well, I'll give you a fact. There was a big loudmouth hanging around my wife, Liza, all the time I was overseas.
Who?
A guy named Victor Brand. Runs the Seaglade Amusement Park. He never got to first base with Liza, but as soon as we broke up, he started chasing her again.
That's so?
You can ask Claire Alsop if you don't believe me. Aunt Claire was living with our Liza when I was in the Army, and she'll tell you how my wife practically had to fight Victor Brand off. He was so nuts about her.
I think I'll take your word for it, Mr. Gray. Muggen, we're going to the Seaglade Amusement Park.
Yeah? What can I do for you?
We'd like to see Victor Brand.
He's pretty busy.
I'm Inspector Thorne, homicide. Sergeant Muggen here.
Oh, yeah, Inspector. I'll tell Mr. Brand you're here.
The little man seems nervous, Chief.
Doesn't he, Sergeant Muggen?
Go right ahead in, Inspector Thorne. This is Sergeant Muggen.
Thank you. Victor Brand?
Well, how do you do, Inspector Thorne? Sergeant Muggen? Nothing wrong in the amusement park, I hope.
Not in the park, Brand.
Thought not. We try to keep it clean here.
I'm glad you're turning over a new leaf, Brand.
I don't get you, Sergeant.
Quit pussyfooting, Brand. I recognized you the minute I walked in. Chief, this character's tangled with the law before.
Very interesting, Muggen.
Sure, before I was in homicide, we had this guy in court for letting pickpockets operate at the park.
Maybe it slipped your mind, Sergeant Muggen. I was acquitted.
It hasn't slipped my mind. You're in a couple of jams before that one.
All right, what do you guys want?
I see an afternoon paper on your desk, Brand.
So what?
Now, there's a story in that paper about the murder of Liza Gray.
Ah.
Are you going to deny that you knew Liza Gray, Brand?
No, I'm not.
That's sensible.
You've got it in for me, Sergeant Muggan, but this is one time I'm with you boys.
Oh, really?
I was nuts for Liza, Inspector Thorne. I wanted to marry her when she got her divorce. And I hope you get the louse who killed her.
When did you last see Liza, Brand?
A couple of days ago.
Did you make another date?
No, Inspector
In fact,
Thorne.
Liza tried to get rid of you, didn't she?
I'd have worn her down in time. If it weren't for that old crow hanging around, I'd have gotten Liza when her husband was overseas.
What do you mean, Liza's aunt, Claire Alsop?
Who else? That character watched over Liza like she was the crown jewels.
You'd better control yourself, Brand. You've broken that pencil in your hand.
What?
I've seen your kind before, Brand. Men with violent tempers who can kill when they're frustrated.
You're crazy, Thorne.
And I'll tell you something that wasn't in that newspaper, Brand. Liza Gray was killed by a sap filled with brand new nickels and dimes. And an amusement park always has plenty of new nickels and dimes on hand for making change.
Inspector Thorne in the Nickels and Dimes murder case will return in just a moment. But first, it's the Silver Jubilee on NBC. With the coming of the fall season, many changes take place. Children return to school, and chill winds rustle the colorful leaves on the trees and herald the approaching of winter. And changes take place on radio. We have new programs and reschedule some of our regular features. This Friday, you can still hear the hard-hitting adventures of reporter Randy Stone, as played by Frank Lovejoy. Night Beat will still be broadcast on Friday. So, too, with screen actor Herbert Marshall, as he comes to you on Friday in adventures dealing in international intrigue as The Man Called X. However, on Friday there will be one major program change. Screen Director's Playhouse, which originally came to you on Thursday evenings, will now come to you on Friday for a full hour. This week, screen actors James Stewart and Jeff Chandler and lovely Deborah Paget will be featured in the Western story Broken Arrow. And here's another program change. The Sunday Theater Guild on the Air will return to NBC. This will necessitate the rescheduling of the popular NBC Symphony Orchestra concerts. Therefore, for the new season, the NBC Symphony Orchestra, under the direction of Peter Herman Adler, will come to you on Saturday. Well, there you have it, a brief rundown of the new fall picture on NBC. Friday means Night Beat, The Man Called X, and Screen Director's Playhouse. And on Saturday, hear the full-hour broadcasts of the NBC Symphony Orchestra. Yes, this fall, for the best in radio entertainment, keep tuned to this, your NBC station. Now, back to Inspector Thorne and the Nickels and Dimes murder case. When beautiful Liza Gray is killed with an instrument of death made of nickels and dimes wrapped up in a piece of cloth, Inspector Thorne gets his first lead from the murdered woman's aunt, Claire Alsop, who tells him that Liza's husband, James, threatened to kill her if she didn't come back to him. Aunt Claire says that Liza left her husband because he was having an affair with a girl from Europe, Maria Sunta. And the inspector finds Maria hiding in the husband, James' apartment, although they both claim that they are just friends. An accusation by James sends Inspector Thorne to Victor Brand, owner of an amusement park, who had been trying vainly to get the murdered Liza to marry him after divorcing James. And now we see Inspector Thorne with Sergeant Muggan in Victor Brand's office, saying,
I repeat, Brand, you had access to new nickels and dimes in this amusement park. And you had the temper to kill Liza Gray when she kept turning you down.
Maybe so, Inspector, but I couldn't be in two places at once.
Keep talking, Brand.
You met Al Stitt when you came in, the fellow holding down the outer office?
Go on.
Al Stitt's a barker here at the amusement park. I'll get him. Stitt, come in here.
What is it, boss?
Where was I last night, Stitt?
Why, you were right here, Mr.